All right, let's go ahead and get started with the announcements. Again, thank you everyone for joining the Virtual Agent Academy. Before we get started, I just wanted to share that we have a community website, so please visit it to explore best practices and up-to-date content, see everything that product managers and folks like myself have published, and use the experience of others, ask questions and give answers. If you're watching us from YouTube, please click on the subscribe button if you like what you're seeing. Also, feel free to like our videos and check back every so often for new content and new Virtual Agent Academy videos such as this. So another announcement I wanted to make is Knowledge. Knowledge is beginning next week, May 11th. So please register at knowledge.servicenow.com. A lot of the content is free, and we also have exclusive content for you in terms of labs, on-demand sessions, or recorded sessions. So please remember to register if you haven't already. So today's topic, before I get started, one other thing, we're doing something new. For those who are regular audience members, again, thank you for listening. We are going to send out a survey at the end. So please, if you receive a survey via an email, please take the time to fill it out. That makes good feedback for us, makes us do better, and want to make sure that we're providing what you guys want to hear. Great. So that out of the way, let's get started. So today's topic is really exciting. Today's topic is providing global support with dynamic translation for agent chat. And with me today is Samantha Santo. She is a senior product manager for conversational interfaces, responsible for agent chat, AWA, and also built a feature for dynamic translation for agent chat. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Samantha. Samantha, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Victor. Should I change to sharing screens, or do you want to stay on for
Sure,
now?
let's switch screens right now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to talk about dynamic translation for agent chat. Before we get started, I'd like to share a little bit about myself. I've been a part of the ServiceNow family for 4 years now. I'm a California native, a traveler, and a yogi. My area of expertise is in localization and chat collaboration solutions, product development, user experience, and market research. As Victor said, I own Connect Chat, Connect Support, and features of Agent Chat. So in this session, I'll provide a brief feature overview, lead you through the exercise, share some useful resources, and then especially at the end, leave time for questions. So let's talk about dynamic translation for agent chat. This feature enables a user who speaks one language to chat with a support agent who speaks another. So this allows agents to handle a wider range of conversations from other regions and countries, which could save organizations both time and money. This was first introduced at limited access in Paris and went GA in Quebec. Any type of pro customer can unlock access to dynamic translation for agent chat. So if you're a pro customer for HR, CSM, or ITSM, you'll all have access to dynamic translation for agent chat. So now I'll walk you through the exercise. This is going to include the setup and configuration for the most part. And as a reminder, we will record this session so that you could refer back to it. We're going to go through a lot of steps. I'm going to take a moment to pull up my instance, but if there are any questions, please drop them in the chat. So while this is loading, why don't I explain what we'd be installing here? We want to install the dynamic translation for agent chat plugin. Installing this plugin will also install agent chat, conversational dynamic translation, and the dynamic translation plugin. So one plugin will activate 3 additional plugins. Let me just go ahead, and you've got this loaded up. All right, so I've already installed it, but I just want to show you. Once this dynamic translation for agent chat plugin is activated, all of these other plugins are also activated, which is awesome because with this dynamic translation plugin comes the Microsoft and IBM Translator Services spokes. They're available by default. Now, if you want to use the third translation service option, which is the Google Translator, that must be downloaded from the Service Store app and then installed to be integrated with the service provider. And that's available here on our ServiceNow store. So for this session, to demonstrate dynamic translation for agent chat, I've installed the internationalization plugin for French. Dynamic translation for agent chat supports all languages in which we have an I-18N plugin and also a language code that maps to the languages provided by IBM, Google, or Microsoft translation services. So as I was saying, we support all languages where we have the I-18N plugin, and then also that maps to the IBM, Google, or Microsoft service languages. The following languages won't be supported by dynamic translation until Rome, and those include simplified and traditional Chinese, Brazilian Portuguese, and Canadian French. So once you upgrade to Rome, those will be available. Okay. After installing and activating the required plugins, you'll want to set up connections to at least one translator service. So for this exercise, I'm going to walk through the Microsoft option. That is one of the two service spokes that's available by default with the dynamic translation plugin. So it's a bit faster to do, but the steps will be similar when you set up other options. So I'm going to briefly talk about the Microsoft connection here. So prior to configuring the Microsoft connections in your instance, you'll need a Microsoft Cognitive Service subscription. And Microsoft has a few options. There's a free option and also a trial subscription if you'd like to check it out and test things before making a commitment. And so I've got the Microsoft Prod Docs up because I want to show two things. I want to show that this is where you would get your API key, and this is also where you would get your connection URL. So once you get a subscription, this would be filled in, and you're actually going to copy and paste the information. It would be from the Microsoft Cognitive Services portal into ServiceNow. So we will have more resources to go through the very detailed steps specific to Microsoft that I'll share at the very end. But for the sake of time, these are already set up. So it's like the cake that's already baked, right? So once you've acquired a subscription, you can navigate to connections and credential aliases and create a connection. So here we have the Microsoft translation.
Samantha, can we zoom in a bit more, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for your patience. So we're here, we've navigated to the connections and credential aliases menu item, and we're creating a new connection. So you would fill out the credentials field, and for the Microsoft option, we'll use the API key credentials. So clicking on the new connections, you would create a credential here. So you have to know what type of credential it is, and that information will be provided in the deeper dive video that I'll share at the end, but we would copy and paste that API key from our Cognitive Services account, define that right here, and then add in the connection URL. So for the sake of time, this has already been done. I already baked that cake. If you have a region-specific subscription, because your instance is region-specific, you'll want to also paste that information into here. Since this instance is set up to be global, we don't have a value here. You'll want to ensure that it's using version 3 here as well. All right, so next we'll set up the translator configurations. So if you go to dynamic translation translator configurations, you'll see this table view. By default, you should see the options for IBM and Microsoft. And here's where you can activate the translator service of your choice. I'll continue with the example of Microsoft here. You'll need to define one translator service option as being the default for detecting the language. So that's the input text of a user, and also the default translation from one language to another. So you can see that I have this Microsoft is set to active as true, and it is also the default for translation and also for language detection here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through how you would test setting up dynamic translation for agent chat. Let's see if I can zoom this in a little bit for you guys. Okay, so I'm impersonating 2 users to test what we just set up and configured for dynamic translation. Over on the left-hand side, I'm Beth. I'm a support agent who speaks English. And over on the right-hand side, I'm Abraham and I speak French. So if you're testing this out for the first time as the end user, it's really easy to set the language right from the user profile. You can just click down this drop down here. I'm going to go ahead and start a chat conversation as Abraham speaking French. Okay, let's see. We'll start with a VA topic. And maybe Abraham isn't sure if he wants to file a ticket right now. So he's going to say, I'm not sure. Let's see if we could talk to a live agent instead. And as the live agent Beth, who speaks English, she can accept the chat conversation over here. Okay, and you guys have to forgive me a little bit. I'm working on a live instance right now, so there are some errors in the topic. But what I want to show you is that Beth, the agent who speaks English, can see the preferred language of the end user, Abraham. Also, the VA chat history, including the translation of the record cards that were shared in this VA chat. So this really gives her context into what the requester needs help with right when she accepts the chat. So as Abraham, I can say I need help replacing my laptop, and Beth can see that translated into English. She has the option. So if Abraham was to use idioms or other types of words that don't directly translate the meaning from one language to another, Beth can go in and see the original translated message and essentially troubleshoot on her own outside of the system if necessary. So say that Beth is actually fluent in English and French. She has this control to turn off dynamic translation for this specific chat session. So this wouldn't impact the rest of her conversations that are in progress, just this one. And she could type something back. And the requester can see it right there in French. At any moment during the conversation, she could turn it back on. And at the end of the chat session, the transcript is saved in 2 versions. So I can make it a little wider here. Beth can see the chat transcript in English here, while Abraham has access to the transcript in French. You know, it's kind of hard to see, guys. So that concludes the exercise for dynamic translation for agent chat. Go ahead and bring back the PowerPoint. So if you'd like to learn more, I highly recommend taking advantage of these extensive resources. I've shortened the URLs so that you can quickly write them down if needed. There are a few videos here. So the dynamic translation for Microsoft, that goes really into the details of how to get the API key and how to make sure you're using the right connection URL. And then we have more information on dynamic translation if you'd like to implement it on forms. And also the handy dynamic translation for agent chat setup video that Victor mentioned earlier, and some awesome detailed documentation on our prod doc site. I want to pause here and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, Samantha. So as you mentioned, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A below. While you think of your question, let's go over some other questions. First, a bookkeeping item. All our VA Academy sessions are recorded. They're not only posted on our community site, community.servicenow.com, they're also posted on YouTube on the community channel. With that being said, Samantha, the number one question was, is this available for virtual agent or for normal Q&A chat, which is virtual agent basically? Yeah.
So virtual agent, so dynamic translation for agent chat will translate the chat history between an end user and virtual agent once the live agent transfer happens. But currently, dynamic translation is not supported for virtual agent. What we will have in Rome is really cool, is a localization capability to make it easier for topic authors to quickly translate topics into multiple languages. So look out for that.
Great. Next question from Nathan. Is this feature available with Teams or Slack integration?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that I would love to do another session that's dedicated to clients like Teams and Slack, but it does work, yes, starting in Quebec.
Great. And then this question seemed cut off. Yeah, I believe the question was, do we need to install the language plugins to get support for languages in this instance? For example, French, German, Japanese, seems like that's a yes, right?
Yes. So that is the part, you know, I set up a lot of this beforehand with the cake already kind of being baked analogy, because it does take quite a long time to activate each of the language plugins. I chose French because it's quite quick, but you will need to install that internationalization I-18N plugin for each language that you'd like to have supported by dynamic translation for agent chat.
Great. Another question, this is from earlier. Someone asked, is Hindi supported? And I believe how would someone check if the language they want is supported other than the ones that you already called out is not supported?
So that's a great question. It's one that has come up often. The way that you could check to see which languages are supported is there should be two requirements, right? ServiceNow should have an I-18N plugin for that language. And then you'll have to go to the prod documentation site for the translator service, like in this example, Microsoft, and see if they also have that language supported for their service. If the language is supported by one of our internationalization plugins and also by that third-party translation service, then the answer is yes, we do have that language available.
Great, thanks. Those are all the questions we've had in the Q&A panel. So unless anyone has any more, I'd like to remind everyone that we are going to send out a survey. So please feel free to fill that out so that we can iterate and improve constantly. Oh, another question just popped up. Katie asks, does the agents or user have the option to translate different languages? I imagine midstream.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So dynamic translation for agent chat currently has the ability to translate from one language to another. So I think that with the scenario that's being proposed, it would be supporting 3 languages. So one language to another to another. We have that on our roadmap, but currently that's not possible.
Great, thank you. Yeah, those are all the questions we have today. And if there are no other questions, I'd like to thank Samantha first and foremost for showing us this cool feature, dynamic translation. I mean, when I show it to consult with fellow solution consultants, they get excited about it. Very impactful and visual. I'd like to thank the audience for joining us for this Virtual Agent Academy. Once again, feel free to visit us on community.servicenow for more tips and tricks, as well as for past recordings of all our other Virtual Agent Academy videos. And also check us out on YouTube as well.
Oh, I see one more question.
Sure, yeah. So Prakash asks, how does dynamic translation control when there's a transfer of chat between agents?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So dynamic translation will stay on when the chat session is transferred from one agent to another. ServiceNow recommends that agents speak the same language when the transfer is happening. I'm glad we got to squeeze in one more question.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Samantha. And we'll see you at the next Virtual Agent Academy, and we'll see you on Knowledge next week. Thank you, everyone.